Okay, let's next have a look at some subroutine that is able to return some value, and let's modify our set of examples so that we have now a static method that is returning some string value. And what this method should be doing, it's supposed to ask from the user of her name. So let's name this ask user name, and what it does, it will express the question to the user about the name. So we will make call to this method output something here, because we have that. Of course we could use the console.write line, but why bother using it, because we now have something more clever. So we will write here please write your name. Okay, and then how can we read the user's name? We can insert here a string type variable which is called name, and then we say console dot read line. Okay, this is something we can do already. And then okay, now when the user has given the name, what do we do for it? So now we come to this whole return thing, and what is it about the type return types. So we declared this method as a string type. So string type is the type of information this method is supposed to return. So whenever we enter here the return call, which is the command that will make the subroutine to finish and then return the value back to the caller, and then what are we going to return? We return that information that this subroutine was supposed to solve out, which is the name that was being asked from the user. Okay, so what happens here? We are going we solve something inside this subroutine, and then we return that important information that this subroutine was supposed to do. And now we can experiment. We can use it here, ask username, right? And now what is important, if we just leave it like this, then our subroutine will be executed and the value will be returned, but nothing happens to it because we do not do anything with it. So if we would like to use that username somewhere, we have to catch it and store it into a variable or do some other practical things with it. So what we could do here, we could for example do something like this. And now please notify I'm using the same variable name here as I used here, but they should not be mixed because they are now declared in different places. So remember that whenever we declare a variable, it's only alive inside inside that block, that code block where it was declared. So that means right after this call is being done, this variable is disappearing. So it's quite safe to use the same variable name here because we are now living in a different world, right? And then what do we do for that? We use it for taking a catch from the value that is being returned by this method, and then we could, for example, write output in on the screen. Oh, let's do so. We will use our output something method for outputting that name on the screen. So we will just simply output the name that was returned by this method on the screen with this method output something. And now we can experiment again. We'll run it. Alright, so where are we now? So we see that okay, this text please write your name has just been output on the screen. So that means we are currently here on this line. The program is expecting the user to enter her name. Okay, the user enters the name here and presses enter. So now that execution returns back to the main method, catches the value, and then it outputs it here. And let's do the same again with the breakpoints and all. So I will put a breakpoint here. We can follow the code flow more carefully. We run it again. Right. So we have not yet gone into this subroutine. I will go in there. So I will let the program to output this information. And how does it output that information? It uses this subroutine here, and now it is being, we can see that text on the screen here. We are still here going back to the ask username, because that's where we came from. And now we are waiting for the user to write something from the keyboard, so that we can take that value and store it into the variable name. Okay, so I need to go back here and write my name. Okay, click enter. So now the variable name contains the value that was read from the keyboard. And if I go forward, where does the code flow now next go? It goes back here where this method ask username was called. So it goes there. Now it is back here. The variable name still does not have any value, so it's still null because this operation did not yet happen. We've just returned from this ask username. So now this expression here has the value that was returned from here. So as you can see, if I bring my mouse here, the variable name is null here as well, but it's actually this call now that is containing that information the user wrote from the keyboard, which is the word Antti. So if I now go one step forward, so then this operation happens and the variable name will get the value. It will read the value from the returned value of the ask username. So now name has that value of Antti. And now, okay, what is happening next is that it will be output on the screen. And if we look at the console, this is how it looks. Okay, so this is how you can create a subroutine that returns some value, and this is how you can use that returned value. So you have to store it somewhere, or well, if you don't do it, then what happens? We can have a look at that as well. So if we remove here this step, so we are not doing anything for that value that was returned by the ask username. Okay, so then what happens to it? Maybe you can see it already. So I put the breakpoint here. I run my code one more time. So we are now just going to enter the ask username. And now I'm going to skip this all hassle that happens inside the ask username. And instead of going into that subroutine, I just simply step over. Okay, I step over. So then it means I go straight to this macro. So step over. So what happened? Well, practically nothing. Okay, yes, okay, all right. It's waiting here for me to write my name. Write my name. So then it comes back. Now it came back to here. So what happened to the name I wrote? Nothing happened to it because this subroutine was executed. Then it returned the value. The value returned here. But then what happened to it? Nothing. So now it's disappeared. It's no longer anywhere. So in case I want to use that value somewhere, I need to read it. I need to store it somewhere. Or of course, well, a practical use for it would also be, for example, to output it on the screen, something like this. This would also make sense. So then I would directly have that returned value here, and that would be output on the screen.